I'm Daniel Danielson. I am the writer of Black Privilege, White Power. So, welcome to the website. Thank you for stopping by. I'm very excited to tell you a little bit about this story. So, thanks for your time. So, here you'll find out, on this website, you'll find out a little bit about what this film is going to be about. It takes place in the South as well as in different parts in the North in 1965, in particular in regards to the Civil Rights Movement, directly a reflection to the voters' rights movement that was that President Johnson brought to the Senate floor in 1965. Prior to that, in the March in Selma, a lot of things were taking place. The Jim Crow laws in the South were malicious. They were bad. I can't really use the words to describe them. I try to write as artistic as I can to reflect some of the things. A lot of that stuff isn't documented. Some of the stuff we know, some of the stuff we've heard, but we don't have a lot of documents about that. Also, that is part of the motivation for this film. This is a story that people are aware of, but it's sort of kind of dying down. And with the 2020 elections coming up, I really wanted to just interject a surge of courage that would reflect the courage that my aunt, Posey Lombard, exuded, and this time one of, if not the toughest times that the nation had to face. So Posey was a young white college student attending Smith College up in Massachusetts, I think close to Amherst, I forgot the town. Her and a bunch of students were involved in forming the SNCC. She didn't actually form the SNCC. She was a volunteer, but the SNCC was a student nonviolent coordination of groups of students getting together and trying to find a way to overcome segregation in the South. Even after the civil rights laws had been passed, in the South, segregation was still prevalent. The sharecroppers were being forced to work or had to work in order to survive. They were being denied the rights to vote. If you tried to vote, they were getting beat for trying to vote, beaten severely, not just beaten a little bit, like throw a rock at them. They were getting beaten severely. These young white students noticed what was going on and wanted to make a difference. It wasn't just the young white students. There were a lot of people in the country who got involved, all different races, and I like to bring that about in the screenplay as well. There was a large Jewish population that got involved in helping and moving the civil rights movement to where it needed to be. There would have probably, I mean, in my estimation, without every last individual, it may not have, the civil rights, the Voting Rights Amendment may not have happened. It was because members were willing to give their lives, and they spoke about that. I forgot, one of the members of the Freedom Riders said, listen, while he's bleeding and gashes all over his head from being beaten by axe handles, and they're getting trampled by horses and bitten by dogs and sprayed with fire hoses, all kinds of stuff. One of the members said, listen, we signed our last will and testament last night, so we're moving forward regardless. I think it was the courage of these members continuing to walk towards the face of death, which we know was the Ku Klux Klan or the White Knights of Mississippi or whoever. A lot of them happened to be police departments who were vocal about how they felt about integration happening. Governor Wallace of Alabama, a bunch of them were very vocal about what they felt should happen for the future of this country, and that would be, in their terms, no integration, that the blacks need to stay where they were and the whites need to stay where they were. Bull Connor was another who spoke specifically about that, and those are the ones that we know of. So then there were more who we just didn't know about. So in this film, there's a contrast between Fannie Lou Hamer, who you will see a lot from the very beginning all the way to almost to the very end. Of course, because she was so significant. Actually, as I was writing, I was leaning to more writing about Fannie Lou than about Posey, and I think that was appropriate. Posey did she plays a major part, but she played a major part from my perspective because that was my aunt. The other thing is that as I got older, I didn't hear about Aunt Posey marching with Dr. King until I was probably in my 20s or 30s. My aunt passed away when I was young. I think I was about 14 years old or so when she passed. And I had no idea about her work in the civil rights movement. Um, in the last 10 or 12 years, I started to research it. I think the first thing that happened was when I saw the mugshot. So the mugshot of her in Montgomery in 1965 was like, whoa. But as I was writing, when I was aligning the dates, some things were like really stood out. And I talked to my Uncle Paul. We had a long conversation. Or we had a bunch of conversations. He was the main, the main influence, and he gave me all the information, as much as the information that I could go from. I would take his information and then take off and research from there. So Uncle Paul was very significant in giving me information. It's interesting too that from what I surmise, Aunt Posey seemed to not tell the family the things that she was doing. So her older sister is my mother. So when I would talk to my mother about situations, my mother would just say like, I don't know anything about that. I was in college. I just got married. We would talk in the summers. So my mother didn't know a whole lot about what Aunt Posey was doing. Also, my Aunt Emily, she was much younger. So when I would speak to them, they didn't really have a lot of idea. So what happens is I've done all this research, and now I'm the one who knows most about what she's done. While writing the screenplay, I got emotional many times, not just from Aunt Posey's story, but from the stories from other people, particularly Fannie Lou Hamer, her speech at the DNC for the Mississippi. She's going for the seat in the Mississippi legislature. I forgot exactly what it was, but the speech that she gave was very touching because she explained everything, and you could tell she was not lying. And that one of the people spoke that the look in her eyes when she's telling the story about getting beat for trying to vote, they were holding her down in the cell and beating her with a billy club. And there was just more stories, that she would tell. And so I knew at that point that this was a story that would be able to encourage a lot of people, because when we see another person acting courageously for something that's right, many of us, it sparks us. Like, you'll see people joining in because this is right. So we're like, okay, come on, let's join in. So I felt like this is an opportunity for me to tell Posey's story, and hopefully that it will encourage other people, especially college students, particularly white college students, but also black college students, because we know now that Posey's fight was for civil rights. But what's interesting though about Posey, talking to Uncle Paul, because when I found out that she was like a civil freedom fighter, I was like, yeah, Aunt Posey was fighting for the blacks. And he said, no. He said, Aunt Posey was fighting for what was right. He said she wasn't just about fighting for black people. She would fight for anything. If they were driving down the street and somebody was kicking an animal, she would stop the car and get out and say, hey, look, stop doing that. And that was really interesting. So there's a lot of times for me, when I'm going through situations in life, I'll stop and think, because I remember her when I was 8, 9 years old. She would send me books and stuff, People of the World Unite and all that good stuff. But I stop and I think about what she would say. I remember how she was. She was very, I wouldn't say militant, but she's very like specific. And she'd say, Dan, do this right now and do it like that. And whatever it was her command that I'm like, oh, I will do. I wouldn't listen to my mother, but I listen on Posey. But anyway, I want you guys to sort of get the feeling of what took place in the South. We have commandeered a space in Mississippi that looks incredible, with the slave cabins and the cotton fields across the street. We're really excited about creating this film. We hope that you will get involved. If you want to get involved, if you have any comments or anything that can help us. I know one thing we're going to be looking for is the Greyhound buses from 1965. So anybody who knows where to get a Greyhound bus from 1965, we're looking for it. But anyway, we just really want you to come in and enjoy a part of American history that brings young white people and older black people and young black people and older white people and Jews and Hispanics, Latinos, and everybody. We're bringing everybody in. And we're not really, the film, I purposely kept the attention away from Martin Luther King, who's great, of course, but you know, I didn't want the attention to be on him. I didn't want the attention to be on the Ku Klux Klan. I didn't want the attention to be on Bobby Kennedy. I wanted the attention to be on Fannie Lou Hamer and my Aunt Posey. So I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you stick around and keep coming back to see where we are with this. I really would like to get it out before the election next year. And listen, you guys send out positive energy because I'm sure that that's going to happen. Anyway, thank you very much.